I didn't know you read advice.
All right, it's always a pleasure to have you on all of our programs right here on Click Niger Internet Radio. The program is Voyage right here on your number one internet radio, Radio Nigeria's first online channel. Well, Voyage is your travel and destination show where we get to interact and have discussions about holiday trips, tourist attractions, safety tips, and everything that concerns the hospitality industry. As usual, my name is Jennifer Ogo on the program, and our focus for today's program is aircraft maintenance in the Nigerian aviation industry. The question is right there staring at you, on your screen. Have you ever encountered a flight delay due to aircraft maintenance issues? If you have, do tell us your experience. We are actually still grieving on the sad incident that claimed the lives of 7 on board within the Abuja province, which occurred on Sunday, that was the 21st of February 2021. And in this light, we decided to, talk about safety tips as it concerns aircraft maintenance in Nigeria. And joining us to have the discussion today is Engineer Godwin EK, who is a FAAN official. That's the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria, and an aviation researcher and publisher. Glad to have you on the program.
Did you say I'm a fan?
Okay, he's an aviation researcher and publisher.
Yes, I'm not. I'm not the summer fan.
Okay,
Yes,
sorry
I'm
about
that
mistake, that
yes,
error.
yes,
Well,
yes.
everything about aviation, he's very aware of it, and it's good to have you on the
Yes, I'm a
program.
researcher and publisher.
Nice.
I have a passion for aviation, and I've researched very deeply into aviation.
All right. Now, aircraft
Right.
maintenance is one of the most important activities that aircraft, airliners and of course owners should never underestimate, most especially the government. So this is a set of activities that includes the inspection, reformation and repair of an aircraft, not only for large planes, but for smaller aircraft as well. How would you explain the military plane crash that occurred, on Sunday near the Abuja airport that killed all 7 on board?
Yeah, it was quite sad,
Okay.
very sad. Yeah, planes do crash uh, once in a while. It still remains the safest way to travel.
Mm.
Airplanes are very faithful machines. They they fall out of the skies more often than not because human operators can be unfaithful and sometimes dishonest. And that's my definition, or rather my take on why airplanes fall out of the skies. They are so beautifully made that if you were to obey all the rules and do the right things, including the maintenance, culture, what they are due, the pilots haven't received all the training required to fly them, safely. The likelihood is that these planes will never fall out of the skies, but occasionally they do fall out of the skies.
But what do you think
The-
happened in that crash?
you see, I wish this was a civilian flight, and I would have given you, um, my suspicion, my
Okay.
take on it. Unfortunately, we are dealing with a military, flight, and I can tell you from my experience and knowledge, the military can be quite sensitive, excuse me, about their issues,
Okay.
and you don't want to, uh, join issues with them, and you don't want to speculate. It's They would rather carry out their investigation than, if they want the world to know exactly what happened, they will publish, and then people like me will now begin to analyze what they published and begin to either agree or punch holes, on them. But now that it's happened this way, I would not like to, speculate or give my idea of what I suspect might have happened, there. However, I want to let you know that that particular airplane, is equipped with twin turboprop engines.
Mm.
When we talk about turboprop, you're talking about this combination of a jet propulsion with rotors.
Yes.
Those are very reliable, ground hogging, airplanes.
Mm.
They, as a matter of fact, if the engines flame out, I do understand that in this case they were actually at a very critical moment, because there are two critical moments in flight:
Mm.
when you're taking off and when you're landing. When you're making your final approach for landing.
Mm.
At that point, the airplane is very vulnerable. I want to let you know that if that plane had succeeded in getting to its cruising altitude and those engines flamed out with the turboprop engine, those fans would have continued to roll and would have, let down the airplane either on a road, if there are no cars on any of our highways. That plane with those engines off would have touched down safely, with those turboprop. The reason it came
Mm.
down hard the way it did,
Mm.
was because it was still, ascending. It's a difficult time for an
Yeah.
airplane during
Yes.
during a takeoff,
Yes.
because those engines have a lot to put behind it. You are battling with the gravitational pull,
Mm.
and you're battling with the need to take such a heavy machine into the skies until you get to your cruising altitude. At
Yeah.
that point,
It's
yeah.
being
So
sustained.
and it's usually full power at that point of takeoff. It's full power. So for an airplane that needs all the power to soar into the skies, to suddenly lose power on those engines, that was actually little or nothing, that pilot could have done, and there was not enough time to even begin to attempt restarting procedures, because of the phase
Yes. And the
of the flight,
gravitational
the
pull.
phase of the flight,
Mm.
when those engines flamed out. That
All
was
right.
the unfortunate thing, really, that happened to them. Yeah,
That's very
but the
interesting.
investigations will tell us what went wrong with those engines, why they flamed out, and they will take it from there.
All right, the program is still Voyage right here on Click Nigeria Internet Radio. On the program today, we are looking at aircraft maintenance in the Nigerian aviation industry, and we're asking you, have you encountered a flight delay due to aircraft maintenance issue? Tell us your experience. What is the most common cause, or what are the most common causes now
Mhm.
of a crash?
Oh, there's a whole lot, a whole lot. Sometimes weather problems, sometimes pilot error.
Mm.
Those pilots do make mistakes in the cockpit. You know, one little error that you call something little, but one thing leads to another and leads to another, and then the airplane ends up, dropping off the skies. And then other would be when maintenance is not done when due, as a when
Mm.
due. The planes are, are likely to, at a point, you know, giving to the pressure of that need to, to put it in its
Ex-
optimal
Yeah.
position to
So
give you service.
how often
And
are the aircrafts now put up now for inspections, maintenance and regular routine
well,
checks?
the maintenance of airplanes, first of all, is that you have the checks. They call them checks.
Okay.
CHECKS. CKS. That's what you call the maintenance of airplanes. You have the A check, you have the B check, and you have the C check and the D check. Now the A check is when the plane, a brand new airplane, for instance, flies a couple of hours as stipulated by the manual of the manufacturer, because the manufacturer tells you everything about the particular airplane or brand you're flying. The manual will tell you everything that you need to know. It says, if for instance, it says if you do 400 hours or 600 hours, as the case may be, or you do 300 cycles. A cycle in flight of an airplane is if you move from point A to B and back.
Okay, like a round trip.
That's correct. You do a cycle. So those cycles, are counted because the logbook of a pilot is something that he carries like a Bible or a Quran. If you're dealing with a Muslim now, that's what the logbook is to a pilot. Everything he does is written in there. If whatever he notices that is abnormal is put in there. So once the airplane reaches those number of stipulated cycles or flight hours, then and is now due for the first check, which is light. It's just a light check. It's called an air check. You must turn in the airplane for that check, and it's so important that sometimes we also say that airplanes are as old as their missed checks and as new as their checks done.
What does that mean?
Yes, I'm going to explain that to you. What it means is that if you have a brand new airplane that is spent only 2 months in the skies working, keep it side by side with one that has spent 1 year working. If you are dealing with your car, you would say, oh, this is only 2 months old. All right. Now, if that 2 month old is due for an air check and is skipped, that air check is not done. The 1 year old that is due for a B check or a C check, as the case may be, and is sincerely done, that 1 year old is a better and newer airplane than the 2 month old.
That's relief.
Yes. So that's how important those checks are. You must do them. And so the C and D checks are the heavy maintenance checks, but the A and B are the light one, are the light checks. And of course the heavier, the more expensive. And so on the heavier, the more cycles that the plane must have attained before those checks are due. But that is also not to remove what line engineers are supposed to be doing each time an airplane touches down and parks. Line engineers, are supposed to move in, inspect the airplane, take a look at some of the sensors on the bodies of the airplane, take a look at the tires, and some little things that they need to check. All the planes are handled like babies.
I mean, it's very key. It's very key.
Yes,
Now, where do these maintenance checkup or checks now? Where do they take place, and do we have adequate aircraft maintenance facilities here in Nigeria?
I often hear people ask this question about maintenance facilities. They're actually called MROs.
MROs.
Yes, yes, maintenance, repair, and overhaul.
Overhaul.
Yes. So that's what they call the MRO facility. The challenge with MROs is that for it to be viable or even feasible, there are a minimum number of airplanes the owner of the MRO must have, or either have either as customer or as his own, airplane. For instance, if you have a fleet of less than 50 aircraft, and you set up an MRO, it's not going to be profitable for you.
Why?
You won't break even. That is the way is designed. It's expensive, and the services are expensive. The mechanics that you use to do the job are very expensive individuals. They're paid heavily, and so it's been calculated that for the kind of investment required to set up, that's why when people talk about, oh, we don't have this in Nigeria and all those, oh, that somebody is about to set up, is out of sheer ignorance that people, carry on those kind of discussions, because if they knew what's required to have the MRO working, effectively, then they will not be sounding the way they're doing.
But
You
don't
must
you
have,
think it might be, like a value chain kind of, thing
if you
where
have less than 50 airplanes, less than 50, you will never break even.
shouldn't it be an
So
advantage where other African countries can actually come
that is the
and
point.
we render them service, and this is a way where money
I
can,
was coming to
yeah.
that. You see, that's where planning is required, and that's what I hold against, the system that we are running at the moment. We are supposed to be proactive. We are supposed to plan, ahead. Nigeria is a huge nation with all the population and everything it takes to really create a hub for Africa in Nigeria. But it surprises and amazes me that minister after minister and leaders after leaders, we no one seems to have paid attention to a deliberate development of infrastructure that would create a hub for Africa in Nigeria. I do not understand what the issues are and why we haven't gotten there. If we were to develop it to that point, and African nations, be West Africa, be East Africa, be North Africa, South Africa, wherever, find need to fly in here and maintain their airplanes. You have more than 500 airplanes to attend to, and it's a whole lot of increase in our GDP as a nation, whole lot of inflow of foreign exchange, but at the moment we haven't
nobody's looking into that direction.
No, we haven't put our acts together.
We need to do that. The program is still Voyage right here on Click Nigeria Radio, and on the program we're talking about aircraft maintenance in the Nigerian aviation industry, and we still have Engineer Godwin Ike.
Stop calling me engineer.
It's like everything. In my mind I'm like, okay, because I've really learned a lot. So my apologies once again, Mr. Godwin Ike, who is an aviation researcher and of course a publisher.
Yes.
Now, are there emergency evacuation plans now for a crash land, for instance?
Well, I tell you what, for those passenger airplanes,
commercial planes.
Commercial planes, yes, you do have them, and again, depending on how the crash started, because it's one thing leading to another until eventually you fall out of the skies. Now, if the crash is such that the airplane successfully touched down but ran through obstructions or trees and all those kind of things,
okay.
Yeah. If the pilots are still conscious as at the time, the plane comes to
a level where
comes to a stop.
Okay, comes to a stop first.
Yeah, you have beautiful facilities built into all those passengers airplanes. You have the slide, the automatic doors. With just a push of a button, those doors swing open, and then the air slides will just pump out there, ready for passengers to to get down.
Mm.
You know the height of the door is so high that if you jump down from
Of
there, the
course.
likelihood is that you're going to break your legs or your
Yes.
spinal cord and the
Yeah.
rest of them. So people don't jump. All you do is get your shoes off and then sit on it. It slides you all the way to the ground safely. And
Okay.
then yes,
Okay.
but
So, what was the average life now of an airplane? You know, the average life for a car, it might be 10 years or so. I don't know. But what's an average life? I don't want to say lifespan
I
because it's not in the UK,
I
but
do know that some planes have spent about 30 years in flight. Yes,
wow.
yes,
Okay.
and like I said to you again, if you have even a 40-year-old plane, for instance,
Mm.
and you uh, carry out a do D check.
Yes.
D check is as good as tearing down the entire plane, upgrading the systems,
Mm.
putting in all the new and current parts and technology, and that 40-year-old plane comes out a brand new plane.
Mm. Nice.
Yeah, so that's really how this is work. And but I must tell you also that because of the need for those commercial airplanes to impress their customers and of course continue to be in business and
Mm.
get people to trust them,
Mm.
because of that psychology of
Mm.
this is a 30-year-old plane that they're using to fly us. The commercial operators at a time will board the airplane. That is to say, they get them out of the way.
Mm.
Of course, sell them to those that will strip them down. Recover the engines that are still working well.
Mm.
Reconfigure them, service them, and put them back into the market. By the way, and because people will still buy them and use them to fly, and then take some, spare parts that are still in working conditions and
Mm.
spare parts that are still valid. Because if we come to that, I'm going to tell you again about the different categories of spare parts that you use for airplanes, because some are time barred, some are in cycles, a number of hours that they work. Some are you once you pull them in, whether you use that aircraft or not, the time set out for that particular part to expire, once it attains that time, whether you use it or not, you take it out.
Mm.
Yes, that's how highly regulated the airplanes or the aviation industry is.
Okay.
Heavily regulated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, finally on the show, in cases of crash landing or
Yes.
crashes, are there hazard allowances allocated to, host communities where airports are located? Because deposits from the crash could actually deteriorate the soil for farming activities, especially communities where their profession is strictly farming. Is there
The
an
what I can tell you
allowance?
is that airplanes are supposed to be insured
Okay.
comprehensively. Um, that is not to say that all airlines do the right things all the time.
Okay.
No, it's not to say that, but the what is expected is that insurance should be in place, and that means that for those that will lose their lives or lose their limbs, or if they all survive but lose their personal effects and stuff like that, the insurance company will move in and make payment. Now, for those hit on the ground, the problem I see that we have here is that nobody, maybe out of ignorance of the people that have their assets destroyed,
Mm.
nobody picks up the problem and say, hey,
I'm
somebody
responsible.
somebody has got to be, take somebody has got to take responsibility for what has happened, and
Mm.
somebody must pay this bill. And then, of course, have lawyers write to the appropriate authority ask for payment of compensation and the rest of them. If these were, done, be sure the people will be compensated. Unfortunately, because the people also who have been hit don't know their rights and don't have access to,
Everything
more,
just
more
gets
often than not,
swept
they fizzle
away.
away, and only those who were killed in the airplane, or who were hurt, or who lost their
Loved
personal
ones.
effects, will end up being compensated, and that sometimes takes quite a long time, and that is the sad part of it. But answering your question more directly, yes, there's for payment of compensation when things like that happen.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you so much for all you said.
Mm.
Mr. Said, I appreciate you for honoring our invitation on the program Voyage. Voyage is a travel, and destination show. We talk about tourism, we talk about holiday trips, how to, revamp the aviation in the tourism industry now, and all the stakeholders, involved in the industry.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
All
My
right,
pleasure.
that's how much we have for you on the program. Talking about Voyage, kindly leave a comment on the program. Follow us on Twitter at ClickNiger1, on Instagram and YouTube at ClickNiger. So far, you've been listening to Mr. Godwin Ike, an aviation researcher and publisher. All right, until next time, remember the website is at www.clickniger.net. Have a splendid time. Remember, COVID-19 pandemic, it's still out there. Remember to adhere to all the COVID-19 precautions. Wear face masks, wash your hands as often as you can. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.